The NFL is back, and the Browns are not feeling the love. 30-point loss. LSU is feeling the heat. Coach O saying it's hot. And Thomas and I are going to make our college football predictions. Thanks for getting up early. It's 7 a.m. It's time to go 1-0.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand, although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point.
Dude, you like okay. Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like
I'm
the Feinbaum of this show.
By the way, that looks Ohio State. Is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh man!
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the Corso.
Hello, good morning, and welcome in to the 1-0 Sports Show. I'm your host, Thomas Fitch, joined by my co-host, Robert Trevino. A big episode coming up.
Huge.
In about 5 seconds, we're going to get to an interview with Steve Helwick. Then we got a bunch of other stuff coming up, but let's go ahead and get to our interview with the legendary TSTV icon, Steve. Steve, you're on.
Hi.
Steve, what's it like to be a legend and be back here on TSTV?
I love it. The new show looking really good with you and Robert there, and I'm really excited to be a part of this and talk some football.
Well, Steve, we're glad to have you back on. Let's start this off. We'll talk Texas we'll talk the Texas LSU game. What were your opinions on this game? And I look at you as, you know, you've kind of slowly drunk the Texas Kool-Aid now that you're kind of gone. I've seen you put your horns up a couple times. But as a more unbiased opinion than Robert and I, what was your thoughts on this game?
I thought Texas played really well offensively. It took a while for them to get the jitters out. You saw early on with the drop touchdown pass and the inability to execute on the goal line. But once the offense got rolling, Texas became really dangerous. I just think the issue was they were in too big of a hole in the first half, down 20-7, and the secondary never really improved. All 5 touchdown drives LSU had in that game were 3 minutes or under. They were giving up big plays. Joe Burrow, he was averaging 12 yards a throw, had 471 passing yards on 39 attempts, while Texas did a fairly decent job of managing LSU's run game. They really couldn't stop Joe Burrow's arm. The quarterbacks this year, I think, really need improvement for Texas. I know that the Longhorns have one of the best safety tandems in college football, but I think some of the rest of the secondary needs improvement to work on that pass coverage because Joe Burrow looked like a Heisman, not just a Heisman candidate, he looked like a Heisman winning performance against Texas last week with the 471 yards. So I think Texas really needs to brush up the defense, but offensively, you have to tip your hat to Sam Ehlinger. The man hasn't thrown an interception yet this year. He's staying pretty
Steve, we're knocking on wood. We're knocking on wood here. Don't worry. No, but you're right. Yeah. I think that's, for the most part, what people have been saying is, yeah, you know, it's an unfortunate loss, but it's not a season killer by any stretch. And you're right. Joe Burrow, played out of his mind. Yeah. LSU finally has themselves a quarterback. Before we go and talk the Rice game, what's your take on this whole air conditioning gate?
I'll be honest, I haven't looked too much into the air conditioning gate, and I don't know how legitimate it is. I think the Louisiana Tech tipped LSU about this before the game. I believe I heard some report about that. But I don't know. It kind of reminds me of the 2014 NBA Finals where some people, including DJ Khaled, were saying that the Spurs kept the air conditioning off because they knew LeBron James would struggle in it. But I really don't buy into it. Yeah. I know Brian Davis of the Statesman obtained the air conditioning records, and I don't think there was a significant found. So I don't look too much into that.
Yeah, you mentioned DJ Khaled. So in the realm of, I guess, heated areas, this is just another one. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So
it's too early for that, Robert.
Among many things, Steve, you're now a writer for SB Nation. So I am a big Power 5 only type of person.
You're a big SEC guy. Don't even talk Power
Which means
5.
I'm an ignorant fan of college football. So can you run us through the CUSA, where
CUSA
Rice
is
stands?
how-
Oh, CUSA.
That's how
Okay.
non-Power 5 people say
Okay, CUSA. Can you run us through CUSA and where Rice stands?
The CUSA this year is very wide open, and that's very much so, especially after North Texas's blowout loss to SMU last week. So they were the conference favorites entering the season. But the CUSA right now has only one 2-0 team, and that 2-0 team is UAB. UAB had to have a goal line stand to beat an FCS team on the first week and got a very bad Akron team last week. So it looks like a down year for the conference so far. One of the teams that was expected to make a splash, FIU, they were favorites to win the East this year. But the Panthers are 0-2. They got blown out by Tulane, and then last week they lost to WKU, and WKU was the only team on week 1 to lose to an FCS team. So there's all kind of mix-ups so far. As of where Rice stands, it's hard to tell. Rice's non-conference schedule is not a very good measuring stick because the Owls were 2-11 last year. While it looks like Mike Bloomgren's team's improving, Rice's non-conference schedule features 4 teams that won a bowl game. Army, then they had Wake Forest last Friday, Texas this week, and then Baylor. So it's hard to measure exactly where Rice is when their opponents are so much tougher than everyone else in the conference. So we'll have to wait later into the season to see where they are. I personally think because their run defense is so stout, they're probably around the 8th to 9th team, which is a bit of an upgrade from last year. I think they're well past the UTEPs of the conference. So Rice is definitely on the upswing right now. I believe they're better than UTSA and maybe 1 or 2 other teams in the conference. But this is a down year for the conference. It's as wide open as ever. It's WKU's beating FIU in week 2. So I think this should be an exciting and year full of parity for the CUSA.
All right, let's go ahead and look towards the game on Saturday. What are just some things that we should be watching for in this game when Texas faces off against Rice?
I think how effective Texas' run game is. The Longhorns this year have been very limited on the running backs that they can use. A lot have been hit by the injury bug. And Sam Ehlinger has basically been their best running back as a quarterback doing those QB power plays. But Keontae Ingram is the player I think to watch the most. Ingram had a rougher game than anyone else last week. He dropped the touchdown pass in the first quarter and also only put up 29 rushing yards on 10 attempts. So I think Rice's run defense, which really limited Army, don't look at the aggregate numbers, but how many yards per carry they held Army to do about 3 yards a carry, and they did as good of a job of Michigan as stopping the Black Knights. Rice's offense just needed an extra possession in that game. So if Rice's run defense can stop Army, I honestly think they can compete with Texas too, especially since Texas hasn't established a ground game since Deontay Foreman was on campus. I know Daniel Young's cleared to play in this game. I don't think he'll be used much as a runner, more in the screen pass game if he does take the field. So I think Keontae Ingram will be the workhorse again, and I think an interesting thing to watch on Saturday night is how effective Ingram is against this Rice defense that has lots of good tacklers, Miles Adams from defensive tackle and linebackers, Antonio Montero, Anthony Ekpe, Blaze Aldridge. There are a lot of budding stars on this Rice defense.
So then let's look at the Rice offense. What is something that Texas needs to look out for from the Rice offensive side of the ball?
Rice's offense really hasn't done much this year. They're averaging 14 points a game. They only scored 1 touchdown against Army, and they scored 3 against Wake Forest, 2 in the first quarter, and 1 rather garbage time touchdown. But the thing to watch with the Rice offense this week is how new Harvard grad transfer quarterback Tom Stewart does in his starting debut. The regular starting quarterback Wiley Green took a nasty hit on the goal line last week and was carted off the field. Very bad head-on collision. Stewart had to check in for his FBS debut. Started out really well, had a rough patch in between, and then kind of got in a flow at the end of the game. Ended up 19 for 30 for 185 yards. No interceptions, but a touchdown. It doesn't equate to a great quarterback rating, but I think how Tom Stewart takes the bright lights of NRG Stadium, an NFL stadium, and how how he manages to play this Texas Longhorns defense, a defense filled with 5-star and 4-star recruits in his first start, is definitely going to be an interesting one because Rice hasn't really established much of a downfield presence this year. Most of their long throws have been slants or screens. They don't usually take shots downfield, so I want to see if Stewart will try that because Joe Burrow had so much success with it last week. And then in the running game for Rice, it was really good against Army. They were averaging over 6 yards a carry, but last week that number sunk to under 2. Aston Walter and Deshaun Ellerby are the key names to look for there. I think if Rice can get Ellerby going, which is going to be very hard because Texas has one of the better run defense units in the nation, I think still. If Rice can get that run game going, that's where they can get most of their yards of productivity because honestly, I don't expect them to just magically rework the passing game when the Longhorns are in town.
So Texas, obviously big favorite. Spread's 31.5. We'll get your prediction on that in a little bit. But is there anything Rice can do? And if there is, what is it for them to have a chance in this game?
I'll be honest, I don't think Rice has a chance in this game. I said if the run game just magically gets a lot of yards on Texas and the Longhorns suddenly given to turnovers, injuries, and other problems, that's how Rice can stay close in this game. I think Texas wins this one around 45-10 in NRG Stadium. This is probably the worst time for Rice to run into Texas, just the week after LSU, a week after a devastating loss. I know Herman's really regrouped his guys. And both coaches, they said this week they're not looking for moral victories. There's no such thing as them at their respective universities. So both teams are really trying to get that win, but that's a lot more likely for the team in burnt orange.
All right, let's move more broadly into the college football spectrum, not just Texas. So what's a team that you look at in basically FBS right now that you think is the most overrated?
Overrated team?
Yeah.
I called it all season. Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Yeah.
When Nebraska was ranked preseason, I cringed so hard. You don't reward a 4-8 team with a couple of losses to good teams by ranking them. It's still a 4-8 team. It's Nebraska. When they blew the 17-point lead last week to Colorado, I wasn't surprised. Nebraska is not that good. They haven't taken the steps above the Iowas, Wisconsins, and even Northwesterns of the conference yet. Overrated.
All right, and then on the other side, what's a sneaky team that you think is being overlooked in the top 25 that could potentially make a run at, you never know, the college football playoff?
I'm going to have to go to Washington State. We haven't really seen the Cougars play real competition yet, but I'm really high on their quarterback, Anthony Gordon. Every year, I get worried about Washington State. They lose a quarterback like Connor Halliday or Luke Falk, or now Gardner Minshew, and they have to replace a quarterback. But just like what you see going on at Oklahoma, Washington State really effectively replaces quarterbacks, and Anthony Gordon's already been one of the top passers in the nation with nearly 900 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, and he's been very poised so far in the pocket, completing 81% of passes. That's just insane, and I'm really excited to see where Washington State's offense can go this year, especially with the Pac-12 being wide open as usual.
Do you think they cover 8.5 against Houston on Friday?
I think they do. I don't think De'Aaron King's being played to his strengths in Dana Holgerson's system there, so I think Washington State wins the Cougar Bowl by a good amount. Houston's defense struggled a lot against Oklahoma. I think Washington State can drop over 50 on this team, no problem.
All right, Steve, we got to let you go, but before that, real quick, give us your prediction for Texas the rest of the season, the record.
I think Texas will go 11-3 this year. They'll have another trip up in the Big 12. That will be either Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, but it'll be Oklahoma. I'm too impressed by Jalen Hurts, but they'll have one more loss. I think it'll probably be either in the Big 12 championship or the bowl game. I originally had them winning the Big 12 this year, but I realized Jalen Hurts would play like Baker Mayfield plus Kyler Murray reincarnated. So the Longhorns will have a good season, another New Year's Six bowl, and I think the team's in terrific shape. Last week was just a roadblock they'll have to overcome.
All right, well, Steve, thanks so much for joining us and coming back on the 40 acres, even if it's only on the phone. When we return, we are going to be talking LSU football and all of the air conditioning gate. We'll have all that coverage for you. Plus, we're talking who's hot, who's not, and, of course, we'll have all our predictions for this week of college football. Stick around.
Welcome back in. It's time for a great segment called Who's Hot and Who's Not, looking at the last week in sports and, seeing who's hot and who's not. So, Thomas, who's hot?
My who's hot, I think this is pretty obvious. It's for two reasons. We're going to go with LSU football. A, they looked dang good last Saturday, and B, they were hot.
Literally.
Literally, because A, they had 12 trainer trips out to the field because of excessive cramping and, well, maybe some fake cramping to slow down the Texas offense. But then after that, Ed Orgeron said that the AC was not on in the locker room, and I think we have audio of him saying that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I called Louisiana Tech, and they told us about it. So we did some things in the dressing room that were better. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was better. At least we had air in there. They didn't have air. We had some blowers in there. So I don't think that caused as much as going out there and having to play 93 plays on defense. I think that had a lot to do with it. Although it was hot, I felt like I think the humidity was like 23%. It wasn't like Louisiana. But our guys did cramp up in the second half. We talked about it as a staff that we need to give some IVs, more IVs at halftime. Didn't seem like nobody needed one at that time. But to prevent that, I think that more guys will get IVs at halftime, obviously with the doctor's approval.
Doesn't deliberately say there was no AC, but he said the Tech coach called him and told him AC might be out. So they said they brought in their own air conditioning, brought in their own blowers. Well, a lot of Longhorns, including Bryant Davis and the guys at 24/7 Sports, have done their research. Turns out at the beginning of the game, 68 degrees in the locker room.
Okay.
End of the game, it was 74 degrees in the locker room.
Oh, that's blistering. That's blistering heat.
74 degrees.
For LSU.
Oh, my goodness. I know. They're from Baton Rouge.
But you can't handle a little heat. So
that's incredible. It's the kind of thing that you would expect after a loss.
It really is. This whole
they
attitude.
Won the game.
This whole
Why
attitude that you've
up?
seen from LSU is really probably some of the sorest winning
yes.
that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's just to cover for the fact that they're not conditioned well.
And then you get the story about Kalavon Chasen. I said his name right this week.
There you go.
Kalavon Chasen.
Kalavon.
A little flex there. Yeah, Kalavon Chasen apparently winked at a UT trainer.
No, you watch the highlights.
Yeah.
That was the first when you see the coach saying, "Get down."
Yeah.
It's just it's the kind of thing where it's like, why are you making this up?
Yeah.
You know, and now to be fair, it's possible that maybe the airflow wasn't the best in the room, but there was clearly air conditioning.
Yes.
So clearly those reports, you know, and I love how the Aggies, of course it's the Aggies who've just eaten this up, and even after these reports have come out that the air conditioning was on.
Well, they have nothing better to do.
Yeah, that's
true. They
have nothing better to do. They lost to Clemson. They played Lamar. Lamar, who literally played an NAIA team in week 1.
Yeah.
What a joke. But yeah, come on, LSU. Win with class. Like, I was, after the game, I was ready to be like, you know what? LSU's a good team.
Yeah.
Applaud them for the victory. But this happens. We're going to talk about Michelle Herman in a little bit and more stuff that happened. Let's just go ahead. LSU football, you're canceled. They're canceled. Canceled. Let's get to who's not.
So who's not?
Who's not? The Cleveland Browns. They're back, folks. They're back. Got blown out week 1, 43-13 against the Tennessee Titans, who I'm not saying that they're a bad team, but not saying they're a good team either.
AFC South football is not the best.
Not the best. Baker Mayfield threw 3 interceptions in the second half, was sacked for a safety. Just not the way you want to start off a season, especially when the whole kind of talk about the Browns going into the season is they're finally back. They can finally be a good team. They got Baker Mayfield. They got a good defense. They got Odell Beckham.
Yeah, I think
It doesn't matter. It's the same old Browns.
The hype was unreal. I do think they were obviously poised for a letdown, and it was going to happen, but I was not expecting a 30-point loss or a near 30-point loss to the Tennessee Titans, who, granted, the Titans, I'm an AFC South connoisseur, being a Colts fan. The Tennessee Titans are actually very, very much improving, and they have a great squad this year.
But a 30-point blowout in the NFL.
30 points is embarrassing in the NFL when you're playing professional football. You can't lose games by 30 points. That is not a failure of – that's not saying that the other team is better than you. That's saying that you failed at your job.
Yeah.
And so for the Cleveland Browns, I believe in Baker Mayfield and his ability to get it done. So I think they're going to turn this around. But it was a really embarrassing start. It was kind of the reverse Eagles with Michael Vick. So, I mean, you come out in the hype, and, I mean, they laid an egg.
Yeah. All right, Robert, who's hot for you?
All right, who's hot for me? California athletes. So, the state legislator passed a bill saying that athletes at California colleges could hire agents and sign endorsement deals. Now, it was sent to the governor on Wednesday. He has not decided whether or not he is going to sign the bill. However, it could jeopardize the future of California colleges because the NCAA has already stated that if they sign this bill, they basically cannot be a part of the NCAA, which is weird to me. That is very weird to me because, I mean, the NCAA seems like this big institution.
It is. You know, I don't think I'm right here, but this could be the beginning of the end for the NCAA.
You think so?
If these teams were to leave, these are major teams, not just football, but you look at what these teams, you know, basketball, softball, like, I mean, USC, UCLA, Stanford are some of the across the board most dominant programs.
Yeah,
if they were to somehow leave, like it would cause a mass exodus. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think if they were to leave, it would be big. As far as paying college athletes, I think we could talk about that briefly. I'm not against it. I think, let's be real, a lot of people are getting paid under the table. But I don't think there's not necessarily anything wrong with being able to say, look, these guys are working a lot for the universities. They're making money for the universities. Why don't we let, you know, even if it's just a base salary, and I know there's issues with Title IX, but why can't we give them a little bit? You know, I'm not saying we got to, like, pay these guys $100,000 a year, but let's give them some money. Yeah. Now, I will say this, Emmanuel Acho came out and was calling it indentured servitude. Yeah. Let's slow it on that. Yeah. These guys are getting a scholarship. Yeah. And I know they can't go spend that scholarship, but a lot of these schools, I mean, UCLA, Stanford, USC, those aren't cheap schools. You know, or going to Texas, going to all these schools getting a good education. Yeah. And the fact that if you don't want to play, you don't have to play.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things wrong with the current system. I think it's a far reach to call it indentured servitude. Yes. That is a powerful quote from my man. Yeah. But I mean, in my view, we can get into the discussion, into the the nitty-gritty of should we be paid a base salary, all of that. But I think the most important thing is that a person should be able to make money off of their own name. So, I mean, Zion Williamson should be able to sign whatever he wants and make money off of it. So the old Johnny Manziel thing. I think you should definitely be able to make money off of your own name. And for that is, I think, probably my biggest pet peeve with the system. Yeah. And so the biggest athletes should be making the money.
Yeah. And I tell you what, if you want to transfer to Virginia Tech to be closer to your mom, who's recovering from a brain tumor, you might as well be allowed to play. I mean, that's absurd, and that's probably a debate for another time.
Yeah, that's definitely who's under the bus, because the NCAA really dropped the ball on that one. And Scott Van Pelt had his great segment about that. All right, I'll get into the who's not hot. Who's not is the Ohio State University. So if you didn't know, the word "the" actually is used 6% of all words, and Ohio State tried to copyright it. Now, this is one of those things where it's like college football Reddit, because where the internet just takes control, because the only reason Ohio State was trying to do this was just to stop fraudulent OSU merchandise. Yeah. So people were just creating the scarlet and gray and putting the word "the," which everyone knows who that is. So they tried to file this patent to take that away, but then the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office came in and said, you can't copyright that. By the way, on the same day, they told LeBron you can't have Taco Tuesday, which is incredible. So
Ohio just taking out.
Yeah, the U.S. Patent and Trade. Well, I think this is more the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office went 2-0 on this.
They did go 2-0,
and it's pretty crazy. But I mean, the Ohio State Buckeyes, I have them in my top 4. But if they don't make it, they could probably sit on the couch and watch the college football playoff from their home. So, I mean, Ohio State trying to trademark the word. I don't know how I feel about this. This is just one of those things.
I think it was more them just doing it for the sake of let's get our name out there.
Yeah.
You know, there was no way they were going to get a trademark for the.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real here. But I think there was just them just trying to be like, hey, let's get our name out here, and you know.
For the free advertising.
Yeah.
It was free advertising on Twitter all over.
All right, next segment, Run Your Mouth Trash Talker of the Week, Michelle Herman.
Well, Michelle Herman was not the
Michelle Herman is our queen.
Yeah.
We're just gonna put it out there.
Yeah.
She is coming from the top rope. So it all started off Tattoo Baker, who is a parody account, but came out and said, Big 12 officials. I mean, a quote.
Yeah.
Quote. You can see it on the screen. Texas AD Chris Del Conte and Tom Herman have filed a grievance through the NCAA stating that LSU players were taunting with the use of horns down. Michelle Herman responds and said, watching people believe and react to made-up report from this troll account is so enthralling, and it's only week 2 of college football. Now, it turned out that you know, obviously the Tattoo Baker is a parody account, and that account and Michelle, you know, they had a good interaction. They were all friendly. But then watching Michelle go after other people, there's a guy, Randy something or else, who was going after, you know, responds to her about Tom Herman doing his whole Drew Lock thing, and he says, you better not be taunting or else. She goes, better not or else what? What will Randy from Missouri do if he ever does?
That's a version of that tweet where it's like, what's Randy from Missouri going to do? Yeah, it's like, what's Randy from Missouri?
Randy from Missouri. And then to make it worse, LSU fans, she posts a video of LSU fans calling her. And I don't know if it was her or someone else, you know, in her family answers, speaking in Spanish, because she's part Hispanic, I believe. And you have people saying speak in English, saying, you know, vulgar racist terms.
Yeah.
Stay classy, LSU. I mean, this is what we're talking about. I mean, win with some class here.
Well, yeah, and you know that the fans that are typically the most rowdy don't make the trip. So the LSU fans that were in Austin were great, and the game was great. I attended the game. It was fantastic. The fans that were there from LSU were really nice people. It was a really pleasant game. So it was, we leave the stadium and we're like, this has been a great game, all of that. But then, I mean, to see this on Twitter is just kind of poor from LSU.
All right, next segment, the Paul Feinbaum of the week.
Yeah, this week.
Goes to
Adam Rittenberg.
Adam Rittenberg at ESPN Rittenberg. He said this after the game, was thinking about #Texas, as Saturday night showed Tom Herman still in the building stage, and the roster is still not ready to contend nationally. Issue is whether they can get there before Sam Ehlinger departs. Can no longer assume the next Texas quarterback will be great. A couple things. First of all, you talk to literally anyone who watched this game, sports writers, sports fans, non-sports fans who watched the game, everybody agreed, yeah, Texas lost, but they contended.
Yeah.
Losing by 7 points, they were close the whole game. LSU just looked insane. That's contending on a national stage.
Yeah, also the part where he says that you can't be sure the next QB is going to, you can never be sure any QB is going to be great.
And we were talking about this before the show. Texas fans haven't assumed the next quarterback's going to be great since Garrett Gilbert happened.
Yeah, I don't think anyone.
We've stopped assuming the next Texas quarterback. We don't assume that anymore. He did come back and say, I worded that wrong. But come on, dude.
Yeah, and then what does it mean to contend on a national stage? Does that mean you have to be Alabama or Clemson? Because there's certainly other teams that contend on a national stage that, I mean, lose games.
Right, and you know, you go back, Texas loses by 7. It's a week 2 game. It's early in the season. They killed Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah. And if they had come out and maybe gotten blown out, maybe you can say, yeah, sure, they're not contending nationally. They lost by 7. They're a Colin Johnson catching an onside kick and a Hail Mary to Brendan Eagles in the end zone away from sending that game to overtime.
Yeah. And
that's contending nationally.
Yeah, that's contending nationally.
All right, that's all we have for this until the break. After the break, though, all our predictions. We got fantasy start and sit 'em. We got best thing I've seen on Twitter this week, news segment. We got our college football playoff predictions. And, of course, we got all our college football week 3 predictions. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. Again, I'm your host, Thomas Fitch. Robert Trevino is over to my right. And we're going to start off another new segment, the best thing I've seen on Twitter this week.
All right, what's the best thing you've seen on Twitter?
Best thing I've seen on Twitter this week, this came from, I saw this on Rex Chapman, but it was actually from The Score. And let's just go ahead and play it. So there you have Antonio Brown and Tom Brady. This is a great video without the Photoshop, but then you put their heads on it. You got Bill Belichick walking in the background. That's incredible.
How much help does Tom Brady need? It feels really unfair at this point for Tom Brady to have any sort of help.
I know.
It's crazy.
I know. What was the best thing you saw?
All right, best thing I saw, I'm already going to break the rules on our first one. Kobe Bryant on Instagram. So
Kobe.
He got after it with his
This is funny.
with his team. So he basically was like, he worded this poorly. So he made it seem like this is what's currently going on, when in fact this was a previous story that now his team is like a success story. But he wrote basically that one girl had like a dance recital or something, so she didn't care enough about the sport. And then he was like, we went out and got 2 new players. And then but then when he clarified it and said the girl now loves basketball, and that was the point. But Kobe Bryant coming in with the Mamba mentality. Like, I couldn't think of a coach that I would like want to have more than Kobe Bryant. Waking you up at 4 a.m. to go shoot some shots in the first grade.
When Kobe posts that, you're like, oh, it's Kobe, that's just Kobe being like basketball is the only thing. It's like, actually, no, this was like, he was like, yeah, she used to like this, but she loves basketball now, and either are great. And then I don't know if you saw, he tweeted out a video of him dancing in middle school, and he was like, I actually skipped basketball or like quit basketball in like elementary school and middle school because I wanted to be a dancer. Yeah,
but imagine like being an 11-year-old girl and you're scrolling on Instagram and like Kobe's just sending shots at you, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Oh, incredible. All right, fantasy football stardoms and situms, week 1. My stardom, I got Jameson Crowder. I almost said the Washington Redskins, but he's on the New York Jets now. You look at Le'Veon Bell, who's questionable. I don't even know how to pronounce I don't even know. Anura? I'm not even going to try. Their number 1 wide receiver is also out. Le'Veon Bell's questionable. Jameson Crowder got a ton of targets. I would go ahead and start him. Although I will say with Sam Darnold being out for this game, maybe a little questionable, but I just think, especially if you're in a PPR league, Jameson Crowder is going to get a lot of targets.
All right, last week I said to start Lamar Jackson, so that's my flex of the week. This week I'm going to say to start Larry Fitzgerald.
You said sit Lamar Jackson.
No, I said start. I said sit Sammy Watkins, which is the opposite of a flex. That was a terrible sit. Both of those are on my actual team, so that was a crazy week for me. But this week, start Larry Fitzgerald. He's going to get those targets. I think the Cardinals, after having a poor week last week, are going to say, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's go to what works, and that is our veteran guy, Larry.
It's interesting. We'll see if that's going to work out. My sit for the week is going to be both Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman. If you have either of them on your team, just go ahead. Don't start them. It's a tough matchup for the Broncos this week. And that offense is just so slow moving, so stagnant. With Joe Flacco, I don't care how elite he is. Don't start those guys.
All right, I'm going to sit Antonio Brown. I see some people in my league. I know someone picked up Antonio Brown, or they had him. So now he's with the Patriots. I would say don't start thinking that he's going to go hot this first week. I think this is that 1 week where you sit him and then you bring him out week 3, because I think he's going to find his groove after the first week.
All right, the moment we've all been waiting for.
Okay.
College football, week 3, playoff predictions. Mine is going to change up. Let's get started with this. We'll do these real quick, if I can ever stand up. All right, here we go. Number 1, Alabama, Crimson Tide. They're not changing.
All right, so that's been your number 1.
Number 1, look, Alabama's they're winning it all. They're too good. Number 2, Clemson, and here's what I'll say about Clemson. Overrated. They're overrated. They're going to cruise to the college football playoff because they don't. The ACC is so weak this year. Their offense overrated. Trevor Lawrence overrated. Their defense very good, however. Number 3.
Oh wow.
the LSU Tigers. Literally, as I was printing this out yesterday, the lady at FedEx goes, "Do you go to UT?" I go, "Yeah, it's for a show."
Yeah.
Look, Joe Burrow looked really, really good on Saturday night. The defense still has some problems to work out, but they are a good team. Number 4, I'm sorry, Michigan. I still have the card. We're just going to throw it in the air. Michigan, you're gone. I know I said they're going to limp their way. I didn't mean going to overtime against Army. That's more than limping their way. Ohio State's going to run the tables. Justin Fields looks good. Ryan Day knows what he's doing.
All right, I'm going to get up on mine. I think Clemson is not overrated. I think they're going to win the national championship. So I got Clemson as my number 1.
Don't knock the board over.
Oh, this is
The board's just going to fall.
This is sideways right now, but I'm going to still put it on. Alabama, though, don't get me wrong, still a strong number 2. Number 3, I'm going to stick with my boys, the Buckeyes, the Ohio State University. And, you know, I find it interesting you call me an SEC homer, but you have now 2 SEC teams
Let's move on.
from the same division within the top 4. And now
I think Paul Feinbaum of the week goes to me.
and number 4, yeah, you get Paul Feinbaum of the week this week. And number 4, Oklahoma. They just look so good. They're going to run the table 12-0 probably, 13-0 I think.
I disagree. We'll talk more about this another time because we're short on time. But I think Oklahoma's overrated. Their defense isn't that good, and obviously the defense has never been that good. But I think it's actually going to cause problems for them this year. Let's go to our Week 3 college football game predictions. And before we do that, let's take a look at our scoreboard, our standings. We finally have this up. So last week, pretty close. Overall, I have a slight lead. I'm 14-7. You're 12-9. Right. I've been pretty good on the spread.
You're really good on the spread.
I've struggled outright, but on the spread, 8-3.
That spread, you should actually be putting money on that.
I should be putting money on that. Let's get into our predictions. First one, number 20, Washington State, 8.5-point favorite at Houston. We talked about this with Steve. Who do you have?
Oh, I love Wazoo. I'm a big Mike Leach guy, and I think that Houston is severely overrated. I think that as we go along, that OU game is going to just seem like trivial. What about you?
I'm same boat, Washington State. I think they cover. I do think it's close. I think Houston's a decent team, but I think Washington State covers.
All right, number 2, Alabama. This is the smallest spread we've seen them so far. 25.5-point favorites at South Carolina. Who do you got?
Man, this is a tricky one because 25.5 that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of points for a decent South Carolina team. I've seen people say that watch out for this South Carolina team. It's going to be close. I don't buy it. You see Alabama. It's up there. It's number 1. Bama's getting the win.
Yeah, I'm going to go
covering.
Alabama.
And covering.
Yeah, I'm going to go Alabama here to cover. I just think that South Carolina is, I mean, you said it yourself. People were saying. I think that's completely overrated. I got Alabama here.
All right, next matchup. Your number 1 team, Clemson Tigers, 27.5-point favorites at Syracuse. Was going to be College game day, then Syracuse had to go and get blown out by the powerhouse Maryland Terrapins. Who do you got?
Well, I got Clemson here. I think Syracuse, as we saw, as you mentioned, getting blown out by Maryland doesn't do any favors for them. And I think they're just now kind of reeling, and they're in a spiral right now. And I think Clemson's gonna win big.
So I said Clemson is overrated, and I don't mean that in not going to win the national, not going to be in the college football playoff. I think take that with a grain of salt when I say overrated. However, 27.5 points, I just don't think their offense has struggled. Offense struggled against Georgia Tech. Well, okay, not true. Trevor Lawrence struggled against Georgia Tech. Offense didn't look great against A&M. Syracuse, I know they got blown out, and I know the defense has struggled, but it's a road game for Clemson. Take the numbers with Syracuse.
All right, Mississippi State versus Kansas State. So a nice battle here. Who do you have?
Yeah, I'm taking Kansas State. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think take the points plus 7.5. It's a hard matchup because neither of these teams have played anybody, but Mississippi State struggled week 1. Kansas State has breezed through their games. Again, I still think Mississippi State wins, but I think it's closer than 7.5.
All right, I'm a big SEC homer here, and I'm going to go.
We know.
Mississippi State, I don't like Kansas State this year, and I think they're going to really disappoint a lot of people. So I think Mississippi State.
All right, last spread game. This is our game. Number 12, Texas, at Rice, at NRG Stadium. Texas, 31.5-point favorites. Who do you have?
That's a lot of points for a team.
That's a lot of points.
I mean, Louisiana Tech, they played very well.
Yep.
But other than that, we've seen this Texas team. Obviously, the mantra is play down to competition. Play down to competition. That's what we always hear. I think that Texas is going to win big but I think it'll be by 20 or so.
That's kind of harsh. I'm going Texas. I said Texas cover. The spread was a little less for La Tech. They still covered easily. La Tech's going to be at the end of the season, La Tech will be a better team than Rice. Not to mention the fact, I said Texas had a chip on their shoulder against La Tech. Talk about coming off a loss. This team wants to get back on the field. They want to play LSU this week. They're going to game plan like they're playing LSU this week because they want to get back in the win column. They win this game big.
All right, yeah, they're trying to go 1-0.
They're trying to go 1-0.
So let's get into the game day predictions. These are straight up.
Straight up.
Okay, first game, let's go to Arizona. Texas Tech, the Red Raiders from Lubbock, Texas, my hometown, at Arizona. Who are you taking?
Yep, the Pac-12 after dark game. Got to go with the Red Raiders. I like what they're doing. Alum Bowman's put up good stats. Got the Red Raiders.
Yeah, Alan Bowman could be one of the best QBs in the Big 12. If he stays healthy, he could arguably be the third best behind Sam Ehlinger and Jalen Hurts, and that's one of my hot takes. So I got Texas Tech here they look great against Montana State, and they look great against, I think, UTEP last week.
Yep.
So, I mean, so far running the table.
Now, to be fair, not hard to look good against those teams, but still, they did look good. Next game, Florida State at number 25, Virginia. Who do you have in this one?
I'm taking
Is Florida State going to fix their hydration problems?
I think they are. I think Willie Taggart's going to gather the troops together. I think the Noles are going to take this one against Virginia.
You know, Kirk Herbstreit once called Austin a cesspool. You know what's really a cesspool? Tallahassee. Jimbo Fisher left it a mess. It is still a mess. Willie Taggart has no idea how to clean it up. Should never left Oregon. Virginia wins this easy.
All right, Michigan State, number 18 ranked team, versus Arizona State, the Sun Devils.
Fighting Herm Edwards.
All right, who do you got here?
Arizona State.
Arizona State.
I love Herm Edwards. I love what he's doing there. I have no reason behind this pick other than I love Herm Edwards and I really want them to win.
I love
Let's go Sun Devils.
I love Herm Edwards. I'm a little bit biased. I don't really like Arizona State that much. I'm going to be real. So
it's a rival journalism school.
It's a rival journalism school, and I don't like Arizona State, and I believe in Michigan State. So I'm going to go Michigan State here.
That's fair. All right, second to last pick, number 17 UCF, hosting Stanford. Stanford, KJ Costello's out.
Yeah.
Is this even a game?
It's not a game. I don't know why people are saying this. This is the whole Power 5 bias. It's going to be UCF easily. They're the better team. They're going to handle this. They're going to handle their business.
Yeah, I agree. USC beat Stanford handedly last week with a backup quarterback. UCF has a not backup quarterback. They got theirs, and they're at home. They're rolling all day.
All right, and at last, the college game day game. Rolling into Ames, Iowa for the first time in history. The Cyclones take on Iowa. Who do you got?
Take on Iowa. The Hawkeyes. Well, unfortunately, we only have a Texas hat, so I can't make a headgear prediction like last week. And I don't think I'm going to top that. But sound the tornado alarm. Iowa State getting the win. Brock Purdy's going to find his way. Matt Campbell, they're going to get a huge win. Tell you what, playing in Ames at night, never a place you want to play. Go Cyclones.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same with you. I'm 2 games back, so I kind of need to strategize. That did not go into this pick, though, I promise. I'm going to go Iowa State. I like the Cyclones, what they're doing. Brock Purdy, he seems like he has a lot of potential. I think this is the game where they try to define themselves on that national stage. I think they really show the country what is going on in Ames.
Yeah.
All right, Thomas, thank you so much for waking up this morning. Went 1-0.
Went 1-0.
Went 1-0. That's all we have for you this week, but make sure you tune in next week, same time, 7 a.m. on Friday.
Same time, same place.
Be sure to check out our sister shows, College Press Box on Monday nights at 9 and College Crossfire Wednesday nights at 9:30, hosted by Turner Barnes. For Robert Trevino, all of us, I'm sorry, I read the script. For Thomas Fitch, all of us in studio and Master Control, thank you guys for waking up too. I'm Robert Trevino. Have a great morning.